Please welcome back to the program, Anna Hopkins.
Hello.
How are you doing this evening, Anna?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's fun to just, be in your home and get to do these things and not have to, even though I was 5 minutes late, obviously I'm still late when I'm in my house. I'm sorry.
It's quite all right. It's quite all right.
I think
You've actually embraced these at-home interviews. I noticed that you've done a lot of like at-home conventions and interviews and stuff like that. And you actually even added in like special like perks, like your dog joined you on the calls and things like that. Oh, look, there it is.
I mean, I have no choice. He comes. I'm also eating. So he's like, I'm going to be sitting here with you guys.
Hey, the more the merrier. That's what I say,
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, man. So I do want to talk about The Expanse, but first I want to talk about For the Record, which dropped on CBC Gem this month. Of course, 6-episode series about relationships and music and how music, both for the good and the bad, kind of affects said relationships. And you are in 3 of the episodes, but the first 2 are the main ones that you're in, of course. There's Always Spotify and the Broken Hearts tour. I gotta say, this punched me in the gut. Like, it was so good. Like, there's a lot of emotional stuff going on there, but a lot of comedy and things like that. It was like perfect for this time of year, but also, it kind of had almost a high fidelity type feel to it. So what was it like working on that project?
Well, I mean, I guess it was last year. It feels like it was a decade ago when I think about it. But yeah, we shot it last year around Christmas. And there's something really special about that sort of melancholy around Christmas. And sort of nostalgia and looking back on your own relationships and how this time of year kind of brings up a lot for people. And so I thought that the writers and the creators and the directors really, these are such short episodes, but they really were able to carve out those moments that I think we all experience around the holidays. And then, the music aspect to it, I had no idea. I didn't really know much about the project until I was like on set in terms of the scope of what music they had access to. Because, when you only get rights for a song if you are in a $20 million film and maybe you get a song. So, they're like, oh yeah, I'm like, so what are you using instead of, they're like, no, we're using this. We're using the Beach Boys. We're using all this. I'm like, oh, okay. And so it just added this really special, it's just very real, the way that we relate to music and how I think music and smell are sort of those big things that bring us back to memories. And so I think they did such a beautiful job weaving that all together.
Yeah, no, and as for us watching it, it's great to see the, as Andrew said, like the gun of the gut punch, because you're like, as I'm looking at it, I'm like I'm reliving some of these moments, as we all do when we go through these situations, some better than others.
Yeah.
And not necessarily as bad as your character goes through in this story, but because that's a bit rough around the edges.
Yeah.
I was just like, oof. But yeah, like looking at that and, and how much it sounds like you guys had a real blast doing this, but only doing like the short episodes as they are. They're about 10 to 12 minutes, roughly around 11, some of them.
Yeah.
Getting that much story into that, did you feel like it was like kind of like a power download of material, or, was it kind of, just kind of like thinking back to like maybe doing a short film kind of idea?
Yeah, I think you're right when you say short film. Like, I think, similar to short stories, you're really distilling the biggest sort of emotional beats and trying to figure out how to tell that story in the simplest way, which is why I love short form. I think it's always a little more metaphorical, and it can, you can, there's an artistic aspect to short form stuff. So yeah, I think they did a really good job, kind of, especially like, also, I believe it's the second episode, like the locations that they got and the look of that, just I mean, it's so sad, but because it's so beautiful, it's that holiday beauty, you know, and they just heightened everything. So that I'm glad you guys responded to that, because yeah, when I read it, it just it feels very real.
Yeah, no, totally. And like, well, that the watching, it was kind of like a double-edged sword for me watching the first episode, because of course the breakup itself is sad, but then you had on top of that the large amounts of destruction of vinyl. That just was like, oh my God, no, that's vinyl. That's terrible.
I know.
Oh, but then of course going into that second episode, because Angela, you know, she's a very, you know, she's a wounded character. In that second episode, it's fun to actually see through her is it her niece, I think? Yeah, through her niece, kind of finding that hope in love again after giving the broken hearts to her.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to ask you, do you yourself have like certain spots in Toronto that bring back breakup memories and things like that? Do you have broken hearts to her?
Well, you know, I'm not from here. I'm from Montreal.
Oh, right, Montreal, yes.
So I got most of my breakups done there.
Which is why you moved to Toronto.
Yeah. So, I mean, but yeah, like when I think about Montreal and when I go back often and visit, and I mean, especially when you're away from a city and you go back, everything is similarly, it's just so heightened. You're like on this corner and you're like, oh my God, this is the, you know, that night we went out to that bar and we got into a huge fight and, you know, that sort of thing. So, I mean, but most of my breakups happen, you know, in the home, but I have, you know, broken hearts map of, you know, big moments, I guess that would be in Montreal. Toronto's been pretty good.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Chill Toronto memories.
That's always a good thing, because it's, you don't want to have a whole life of broken hearts and tragedy.
No, you want to like get past that.
Yeah.
No,
or less often, I would say.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. So, of course, this past week, The Expanse season 5, the first 3 episodes dropped on Amazon Prime, and of course, Monica is back, and she's tracking that protomolecule story, and it's getting her into trouble. So
someone's got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. What was it like to get to go back and play the character again with a brand new story?
Well, it was really surprised. I mean, you never know where they're quite loyal to the books, the writers and the creators, but you know, they do, obviously there is a adaptation involved, so it could go one way or another. And I think like after the 3rd season, I was done and I just didn't think I was gonna be back. So getting that call was really fun. And then I think it was the first table read. We read the first 2 episodes and I read that container sequence and the shipping container sequence. And I was like, wait, what? You know that I'm not like good at this, or I've never done this before. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. It's basically a very long sequence, no dialogue. You have to tell the whole story in wires, and it's going to be really, really hard work. And like all the actors were like, it's really painful. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was so nervous for this sequence, but eventually, the nerves kind of disperse and you get to work. And this season was so fun to do. Holy moly.
That's awesome. And this was your first time doing wire work?
Well, I did a very brief, very uninvolved wire work in season 3 when I get spaced.
Right.
And that was just simply, you're hanging and the camera's just following you. And that was literally a couple of minutes. So this was very, very different. Very elaborate.
Yeah. I'm curious now, because when you look at it's just the timing of the way the world works sometimes as an actor, for us as fans, like when we see your performances, like, so we've got, For the Record on one hand, which is so down to earth and real world with us today. And then even as The Expanse is pretty much hard sci-fi and is believable, it's still sci-fi. And you are doing like crazy things in space and alien particles, and with the protomolecule, like there's like all these craziness going on. Do you ever like when you look at your life and your roles that you get, do you ever look at it and you're like going, this is like, I don't know how I'm going to get from this point to this point? Or are you just like strap in and get on the roller coaster and go?
I mean, I think, yeah, like I think from the outside, yeah, probably when you see these finished products, it feels they're so different.
Right.
But when you break it down, it's like you wake up in the morning, you make your coffee, you drive to set, you learn your lines, you know, and it's really, I experience it at the same time as you guys. Like when I'm watching the episodes, I'm like, oh damn, like this is, you know, this is intense, like both for the record and the Expanse.
Right.
But sure, when I look back on sort of the, you know, the opportunities that I've gotten, it's a very eclectic range of, you know, often I'm going between sci-fi, very intense sci-fi, and then sometimes I get to do some of this more grounded stuff. It's not that often though. Like I love comedy and I love sort of grounded stuff, but I just end up in these, you know, sci-fi things, which I love because I'm a sci-fi fan. So I'm not complaining. But yeah, it's a weird, when you look back on it and you see the finished product, it's very weird.
Yeah, no, totally. We got an email in from Joe E, who says, "Hey geeks, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Anna is a brilliant actress. I just love her. She was great in Human Trafficking and Barney's version. Geek on." So there you go. Thank you for that email, Joe.
Jobs, or my Human Trafficking was my first job ever.
Really?
So thank you for that shout out. Yeah, it was when I was 18.
Wow.
Some deep cuts on your career there. Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Damn. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, so with this season of The Expanse, of course, you had the whole scene in the shipping container and everything like that. You have another project that is currently doing the virtual film festival route where you're kind of confined in something as well, Tin Can.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's a crazy film. That's like an art house sci-fi prison break movie where Seth A. Smith wrote and directed it, and he's a really, really interesting artist out of the East Coast, and he built this confined space. We were working in a set, but like super low budget. Everything was practical. It was really cool, and I was inside basically like this big for 5 weeks or whatever it was, trying to get out. I'm like, was The Expanse before or after that? I can't remember. It was around the same time. So one informed the other. Like I was used to being inside, stuck, trying to get out.
Yeah.
I guess that's my typecast now. Person stuck in small spaces.
Yeah, it's like, you need somebody for confined spaces. Have I got the girl for you?
I throw in sci-fi on top of that for sure.
We're good. Yeah, we're so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But of course, the last time we had you on was for the short film you made, The Give and the Take, that you directed. And I know that last year around this time, you actually got to shadow Jacob Tierney while he was shooting Letterkenny.
Yeah.
What was that experience like while they were shooting season 9?
Oh man. I mean, Jacob and I go back like so far. We went to the same high school. His mom was a teacher there, and she was the one who basically, because Jacob used to act, he still does sometimes, but she was the one who said, you know, she called Jacob's agent and said, you got to see this girl. She was in a play at school. And so she got me my agent, and now this woman's still my agent, Karen Benskin. She's wonderful. So we have this like long history, and I hadn't seen him in years. And I was working with New Metric Media originally on Bad Blood. And then I actually they optioned a screenplay that I wrote. So I started to get really involved with New Metric Media, and they gave me that opportunity. They said, you know, do you want to, we know you're interested in more directing. Do you want to shadow on Letterkenny? I said, yeah. So I went up to Sudbury in the dead of winter. And I just, you know, that show is so unique in every aspect. Obviously the way that the show itself, but it's also the way that it's shot. Like they shoot 14 pages a day, whereas like on the Expanse, actually I was working on the Expanse at the same time, and I would send screenshots of the call sheet to Jacob to show him how many pages we were doing, and it would be like 1/4 of a page for the whole day. And he's like, we just did 16 pages. So the pace and like the way that show moves, and it's such a well-oiled machine, and there's still so much laughter and joy, and everything's really thoughtful. Like it was so cool to watch something like that, because I've been on so many sets, but that is the most unique, interesting set I've ever witnessed, and all the actors are amazing too. So I had a great time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I when I look at you when you're mentioning about the quarter script being done on the Expanse, it's not surprising when you look at a show like the Expanse, which is so, like we take it for granted sometimes. We're just like, oh, this is cool sci-fi, and I really love that. That's awesome. But yeah, from your side of things, like I can only imagine it's like that hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait.
I mean, it's, with the Expanse though, it's not actually like, they have to do so much that there's actually not a lot of waiting. There's just so much to do. And so, that 1/4 of a page actually does take, like that whole shipping container sequence took like a full 12-hour day, plus another day of a bunch of pickups, plus another day with a hand. So I wasn't there, and they had to like do more pickups with. It was like, and you finally see it. I'm like, oh, that was 30 seconds. Like, holy shit. And people are like, cool sequence. I'm like, oh my God, like that took so long. It was so hard, but it was worth it. I mean, seeing the nuts and bolts is always so fascinating. Brett Eisner doing that. I mean, I don't know how you direct that. It was too complicated.
Right. Well, I was going to say, it's like, because when you look at Give and Take, which you got to direct, right? Like how different that is of a scope and everything. Like, so that must have been like, you're like, going into it, were you concerned that it was going to be that difficult, or were you like pretty confident? You're like, okay, I know what the script is. I know what's going, I know what I want. I know what my vision is. I don't have a million sci-fi wire work shots I got to worry about.
Shots or anything like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what makes you appreciate this, when I see what Breck did that day, or what the whole team did, is that, even for something as tiny as my short film, that is essentially one conversation, there's still so much that goes into it, and there's so much that goes wrong. You're constantly readjusting, you're constantly having, so just knowing this one conversation, 10 minutes that I shot, obviously I'm a new director, so things don't come as easily as they would with Breck, but obviously, but you see how complicated it is, and on top of it, by this point you also you want the performances are the most important, but you have this whole sort of, it's this like weight on your shoulders with everything else. And then finally you're like, oh shit, I have to direct the actors. Like that's the most important thing. And you're just like, is the shot here? Is this in focus? Like everything's just like, so when I watched that shipping container day, and, I don't know if you guys saw, like I posted just a portion of photos of the storyboards that were used. I mean, there were hundreds.
Yeah. And
the sets that were built, I mean, I should have taken photos of the sets. They were insane. I'm going to find somebody who has photos, because Breck did look stressed. So it wasn't like super easy for him. He said it was really elaborate. So even then, like, all right, he's not a superhuman. I mean, he's superhuman, but yeah, it's hard.
Even superhumans have some weakness. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So now, like, again, talking about all this stuff is really awesome, but I think we actually got to get down to what's important here. So a week or two ago, you were on Instagram, and a friend of yours had brought you home from Japan a magazine about corgis, a corgi magazine.
I mean,
so is that the best gift you've ever received from a friend?
Yes. It's so funny. She got that for me almost a year ago, and
Wow.
she doesn't live here. And she actually eventually sent it to her sister who lives here, and myself and her sister were having a really hard time coordinating. And finally last week I was like, all right, like I can go pick up this gift. And in my head I was like, I don't know, like I don't know what I was expecting, not that. And I get it, and I was just, Jasper's looking at me, he's like, it was good, he liked it as well. And yeah, it was the best gift ever. Everyone responded. A lot of people responded and said, you know, you can get this app where you just like Google Translate, or it's another translation app that you just hold your phone over it and it'll tell you what it means. So I'm going to get that. I haven't had a chance yet, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it. I'm going to do another updated post to let everyone know, you know, what was happening in those photos.
Totally. I definitely I'm interested in the human interest story about the old man and the dog.
Me too.
Yeah, that one I'm most interested in.
Like, honestly, who doesn't love corgis, right? Like,
I don't know. I see Baby Yoda behind you, and I honestly feel like Baby Yoda was kind of designed with baby corgis in mind.
yeah.
Oh, totally. With the ears.
Yeah, the big flop. Yeah, I'll find a photo of him when he's baby, and you'll see.
All right.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
That'd be great.
Oh man. Well, Anna, I want to thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for
tonight.
having me.
It was so much fun talking about the shows and talking about corgis with you. If everybody can find a love in their life like your love of corgis, I think we'd all be in a better place.
I agree. Jasper also agrees.
Oh, look
Look
at
at
that.
him. Yeah. Oh man. Well, again, Anna, thank you for coming on. I'm looking forward to the rest of season 5 of The Expanse.
Yes,
you.
very much.
And I hope a lot of people get to check out For the Record over the holidays, because it's a great show.
Thank you so much, you guys. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Have yourself a great night.
You too.
Bye, Anna.
Bye.